Welcome back to the Preppy Podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. This week I have on Stephanie from Little Blue Designs. I have met Stephanie through the Southern Sea, and she's been a follower of mine and a listener of the podcast as well. So I always love connecting and having guests on who are also listeners of the podcast and supporters. But before we get into this week's episode and learn more about Stephanie and her amazing art and some of the great collaborations she's done, I have a few housekeeping things to go over. The first being that this week I have added some new product from the Hermosa on Shop Preppy, the preppypodcast.com. So you'll find lots of swimsuits, lots of dresses, really cute clothing for spring and summer. So definitely head there and shop at the preppypodcast.com. And also, I teased this last week, but we are working on the first ever Preppy Podcast retreat after many requests to do so over the years. So that will be in July. I will have some more information, tickets, dates, all of that in another week or two. But if you are a brand or business that has been on the podcast and would like to be involved in this retreat, please email me. You can reach out to me via DMs or email me at patricia@peakedpr.com, and I can share more about that before we officially launch those tickets. And then finally, be sure to follow at the Preppy Podcast on Instagram, as we have some fun giveaways scheduled for the next couple of weeks. So definitely pop over there and make sure you guys are covering all of your bases. All right, let's get into this week's episode. All right, so why don't you let everyone know who you are, where you live, and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Stephanie Troxler of Little Blue Designs. I am in Bradenton, Florida, and I'm a watercolor artist and surface pattern designer.
Excellent. And Stephanie, you have been a listener of the podcast, and we've had the pleasure of meeting through the Southern Sea. I guess that was the first time we've met in person at Southern Sea events. Yeah.
Yes. So we met each other through there, and I love the Southern Sea. Like I just love going to Summit every year and meeting like-minded people and connecting with other artists, other entrepreneurs. So I'm so excited to be on this podcast today.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you, and I'm so excited to learn more about you today. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about you as a kid. Were you, a talented artist at a young age, or was that something that developed later? Were you entrepreneurial or business-minded? Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I would say I've been like a lifelong creative, a lifelong doodler, I would say. So I think from an early age, I really was attracted to art, and I think about like my favorite gift as a child. I received like probably when I was like 7 or 8, I received this kit that was like a wooden box that had like pastels, it had markers, it had watercolors, it had crayons, and all sorts of art supplies. And I think still to like this day, that's like my favorite gift that I've ever received. And so I was just like always doodling in class since I can remember. And entrepreneurial, I would say yes. I'm very inquisitive. I feel like I'm always having these crazy ideas, and I always keep a journal too of these like crazy ideas that I have. And I think I have like an early memory of like when I was in high school of like, the JanSport backpacks that we all used to have. So I had this like brown corduroy one, and I felt like it just needed some pizzazz. I feel like it was very plain. So I felt the need to like sew polka dot like ribbon trim around the trim of the backpack and the pockets just to give it an extra little touch. And then all of my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, where'd you get that backpack? Like, what is that?" I was like, "Well, actually, if you like it, I can do it for you." And so I remember that early on. And then I also, I did yearbooks too. Like I did like the cover. So I would do like my name and like little designs, and then like I would put like tape over it so it wouldn't get messed up. And then I would do some for my friends because they liked it so much. So like I remember those early memories as a child, just being super creative, a little bit entrepreneurial in that sense. And just carried on throughout my life.
Yeah, I love that. That's so funny. I remember, growing up, those little kits that you talked about where you'd have all different crowns or paints or a combination of them. And I saw recently someone posted for their kid, like Bobble Bar has these kits with all different beads. And I'm like, I kind of want that as an adult. Like, I would have loved that sort of thing as a kid.
Yeah, me too. That sounds great.
Right?
Yeah.
So, when it came time for college, where and what did you end up studying?
Yeah, so I went to UCF for college, go Knights,
Mhm.
and I actually was pre-dental. So I knew in high school that I wanted to pursue a career in dentistry. And so that was my track throughout college. And I studied biology as my major to start out with, and then psychology. After taking a few psychology classes, I really liked that too. So I made that my minor and it was like, what was it, junior year is when I switched from my major from biology to psychology because I liked it so much, number one. And number two, I could just take additional courses that were pre-dental track still and graduate. And so I did that. And I actually knew after shadowing in college, I shadowed a dentist in Winter Park
Mm.
for from junior to senior year, and then he was like my first job right out of college. So I was a dental assistant in his office. And while I was going through the process of applying for hygiene school, so I actually changed my mind of like wanting to be a dentist to hygienist just from shadowing him and learning more about like owning your own business and all of the responsibility that comes with owning your own staff and everything, running your team. And so I was like, you know what? I never really considered dental hygiene until I started shadowing Reagan more. And she was awesome. And I was like, this is more my speed. This would give me more freedom if I wanted to have my family one day. I can potentially do hygiene part time. I would still have those relationships with my patients and things like that.
Mhm.
So that's actually what I ended up doing. I went to Gainesville and I did dental assisting and dental hygiene there. And I worked in the dental field for about 9 years or so. And that's when the pandemic came and changed everything for
Oh
me.
my gosh. Well, first of all, I think you're the first person I've had on the podcast that has a background in dental. I think that's a new one, so that's cool.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, so that's so interesting to me. I find dentistry like so fascinating, the whole industry. But so how did it come about then? Like when did you get into art? Was this then during the pandemic you were kind of just fiddling around and had an interest, had a hobby in it, and then it developed later? Or was this kind of maybe throughout your life you were still sort of doodling? Tell me a little bit about that, like how it came back to your life.
Yeah. So art for me, I was always painting as a hobby, and I would paint acrylic mostly, and it was very like on and off. Like I would just pick it up, when I had time for a little bit of me time. But during the pandemic, when I actually there was a lot of things going on to the pandemic for me. I had my twin girls April 21st, 2020. So it was right in the middle of everything in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so it was actually a good thing timing wise because all I really wanted to do was be home and be with my babies anyways. And my husband was able to be home with me because he couldn't go back to work. He's actually a dentist. So we both couldn't go back to the dental field for a while. And that allowed us to have some like sweet time with our newborns. And now I was struggling a little bit with just like being a first time mom and twins, and the pandemic is just like a lot at one time.
Totally.
Yes. So I went back to painting. So I had some of that free time once the girls would nap, and they're newborns, so they slept a lot
Mhm.
during that time in the early days. So I would kind of break away during naps and dabble a little bit. And I always wanted to try watercolor because I love the aesthetic. And it was just something new. I'm like, everybody's trying something new during the pandemic. Let me try watercolor, you know?
Yeah.
So I tried it out and I really, really liked it. And I just started watching YouTubes. Jenna Rainey is an artist that I started following. And I would do that once the girls had gone down to sleep at night. I would kind of stay up for a couple hours and just have some me time for myself and just kind of fill my cup a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, and I was kind of doing that for a while. And then I would go back and forth. I would temp a little bit for hygiene, but I felt the pull to come back. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I'm going back during the pandemic where it's like extra hard for me and I
Yeah.
don't need the extra
Stress.
pressures
Yeah.
and stress as a new mom on top of everything else. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is a sign that I just need to take a step back and be at home for a little bit, paint more. And that's what I did. I stayed back and I actually opened my own Etsy shop because friends and family would like ask about my posts when I was like posting things that I would paint. And so I started doing things for friends and family mostly. And then I started out small with Etsy. I did like cards and fine art prints and like little gift tags and things like that. And then I started doing hand painted champagne bottles for
Oh,
special events and things like that. So that kept me busy for months. I had commissions booked out for months from that. And that whole thing snowballed to where I was like, this is too much. Like, let me take a step back. Cause then at that point I was like, oh, I don't know if this is like as fun anymore.
yeah.
So I was kind of getting overwhelmed with that, but I kept on with the watercolor. Um, and from there, I started getting into stores.
Mm.
So local stores started reaching out, or I would approach a store that I really liked, and then I was on fair. So it kind of like
Yeah.
step by step, things started evolving. And that artist that I've started with from the beginning, Jenna Rainey, offered a course called Brand Plus Brand. And that course taught me how to scan my artwork in and digitize my art, and then also build patterns with it, repeat patterns, and also how to pitch to brands. So it was a really eye opening course for me. And that really changed the game for me from there.
Definitely. I feel like that's such a great resource for people listening who might be artists or want to be an artist and dabble in that. So thanks for sharing that. With
Yeah.
that course, do you know how much around it costs to do or?
I think she does run a special a couple times out of the year. I think it was probably close to 2 grand.
Okay, got it. But such a great resource, it sounds like. And I think it's interesting hearing your journey, how it kind of started as a hobby and then as a business. And I feel like so many people that I've interviewed on this podcast they did that during the pandemic. They kind of found themselves or were able to try something that they didn't have time for before or didn't maybe have the courage to try or always wanted to start something but never did. And that kind of gave them the confidence to do so. So I think you're very similar in that sense. And then naturally progressed into an Etsy shop because I think that is a really great way to get started. It just makes you just upload products at a price to it. You don't have to worry about, website codes and any of that nitty gritty. So,
Absolutely.
would you recommend that to someone getting started too? Like, obviously, there's a downside as you grow.
Yes, I would definitely. It's very beginner friendly. Like you said, you kind of just upload what you want, set a price at what you want. There's no real pressure to do anything except for fulfill your orders, of course. But I think that's a great way to start if you're going to start doing that. And then I kind of moved away from the platform eventually just because they do take a pretty good percentage. And so I felt like, okay, I have somewhat of a following now. I think I could make the transition into my own website. And then I was also doing fair as well and getting that exposure for wholesale. And so that kind of was like, okay, this is the next evolution. So
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And then, so I know when you were selling with boutiques, you had some great collaborations and some great store accounts, like a lot of resorts too. It sounded like, is that right? So
Yes.
do you want to talk a little bit about those and maybe give some advice on people listening, like how you get into some of those accounts? I think those are really hard, even for, clothing brands, not even just art, to get into those resorts and hotels. And it's a very coveted spot to be.
Yes, absolutely. You're right about that. Um, so with the resorts that I have accounts with right now are the Gasparilla Inn and Sea Island. And so those kind of came about just by word of mouth and just networking and knowing the right people. I met someone through the store that I'm in Longboat Key, Driftwood Beach Home and Garden. She was a customer, but she was also like an agent, and she worked for an art gallery in Longboat, and she had connections with the buyer at the Gasparilla Inn.
Mm.
So it was really just the right place, right time, meeting the right people, and not being afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was when I was really launching, like, let's see, I had my map collection, which was like the Anna Maria Island map and the Longboat Key map. And the buyer at the inn was really wanting to do like the Boca Grande map. And I had started working on that as just kind of like a little soft pitch. And she really loved the colors and the aesthetic. And it was just really a good fit for what they were looking for.
Mhm.
So I felt like that, always helps too when you have the right aesthetic and it just works and the timing's right. That's really when things are meant to be. And then for Sea Island, that was totally like a Southern Sea thing.
Yeah.
Right place, the right time. I went for Summit for my very first time last year. And at that point, I was in Fair. So it was pretty easy for me to like just connect with people and give them my Fair account and they can browse real quick and see. I showed them what I had done for the Gasparilla Inn because I did do some custom work for them too, where they wanted like the inn on some note cards and the pink elephant on some note cards. And so I had kind of that foundation already set to pitch to Sea Island. So I took advantage while I was going to be there for Summit. I actually met Dusty. So
Yeah.
he runs, I think, social for like Sea Island and stuff. So he's really good about attending all of the events and everything at Summit. So we connected and he's like, I did the sip shop last year
Okay.
too. And so he bought one of my art prints that has the cloister sketch on it. And he's like, have you talked to Terry, our buyer yet? Like, she would love this. I feel like this would be so great. And so again, right place, right time, right people, and just networking.
Yeah.
And so he did get me a meeting with her and I was able to show her my stuff and she loved it. And we're still working on it right now. Like we have a few items in the shop right now, but she's wanting to do more. So we're gonna see if we can do some more sketches of different parts of the resort and put them on more products. So
So cool.
stay tuned for that. It's funny because it's like I had like a shift in like kind of like how I'm setting up my business this year.
Mhm.
I'm moving away from like brand like product based business this year, and it's funny because I kept getting pulled in by like the resort accounts that I had. I'm like, you know what? I think it's just like I'm going to keep just a small set of those accounts
Mhm.
because I really can't do it all. I felt very overwhelmed with the wholesale, the retail, making my own products, doing everything, and then also trying to do the artwork and trying to make patterns and
Mhm.
pitch. Like there was
Yeah.
just no, and life as
Yeah.
a mom. So like there was like a lot going on. I was like, you know what, something's got to give, but like the end goal is still the same.
Definitely. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? Obviously, we know the reasoning behind it, but so how does the business look now then going forward, would you say?
Yeah. So I've kind of taken a step away from Fair and picking up new accounts. I've kept on the accounts, the small accounts that I have here locally who've been with me from day one. We are just on a different schedule. So like I told them, we'll probably do, 2 bulk orders a year, and that way I can plan for it and I have more time instead of getting pulled away every few weeks to try to fulfill an order. and things like that. So that's what that's looking at like right now. And so, like I said, I'll keep the resort accounts on there as well. But it's really more now focused. I'm focused on doing the artwork, having more time to create and make the patterns and build up my portfolio, and focusing more on pitching to brands and reaching out for brand collabs. And also having like time to do some watercolor workshops too. I
Oh,
do that. Yeah. So at Driftwood Beach, there's a beautiful little shop there with a garden in the back. And it's like a little canal that runs through the back. It's like the most magical little spot.
yeah.
And I get to teach there when it's, in being in Florida, it's like only a few months out of the year where it's actually nice out. So we do it from January through May, where I do one every month. And it's such a great experience. I love being able to have the time to do that. And so, yeah, that's really the business right now is watercolor workshops. And yeah, more time for creating and pattern building and pitching.
So tell me about then some of the collaborations in terms of the patterns you've collaborated on. I know recently you launched with Sunday Social Club, who has been on this podcast too. But any others, and can you talk a little bit more about those?
Yes. So other brand collabs that I've done, Southern Tide, I'll just name them off real
Yeah.
quick. Southern Tide, Petite Keep, Minted, and the Gasparilla Inn in Sea Island, and La Pointe Pickleball. So there's our few.
Those are amazing. And so most of those then, are you pitching yourself to them? Are they coming to you? And then also kind of what's the process like? Most of the time, do they have an idea of what they want that to look like? Or do you kind of have the creative reign and the idea? I'd love to hear more about that for listeners who are interested in that kind of business.
Yeah. So it's kind of a mix of both. There was a few brands like Southern Tide and Petite Keep who did reach out.
Okay.
And they were looking for a specific thing. So, like with Southern Tide, they were looking for a local artist to paint a large scale art piece for their retail shop.
Wow.
And so originally it was going to be here in Siesta Key, but then the timeline got all crazy. And then we actually ended up doing it for the Winter Park location. So it
Oh,
was like a very full circle moment. I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to work here. I'm so familiar with this area. And I was thrilled to do something for that store. So, yeah, if you go in there, that big map of Winter Park on the wall is something that I did for them.
oh my gosh, I'm going there in like 2 weeks, so I'm gonna have to check that.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Go take a picture, send it to me. I'd love to see it. But yeah, that was really exciting. That was kind of like a pinch me moment because I thought it was like not real when I got the email. It was from their PR person. And it was just like a letter from corporate saying like that they were looking for a local artist if I would be interested in doing this project for them. I'm like, I had my husband look at him like, is this for real? Like, do they have the right person? So yeah, that was super exciting. So that happened. What was it, like 2 years ago? And then I've still kept in touch with them. Like I've done little projects here and there for them. Like we did some really cute Valentine's cards last year. They wanted to do like a social media post, so I created some patterns and some cards with that were inspired by like their latest prints that they had on their clothes. So I took that, made it into watercolor, and then I did some cute little stationery for their post. And then I did a pop-up at like the local Southern Tide, which was fun. And then I did some watercolor portraits of their stores. So some of their new stores that they were launching, they wanted me to do some watercolor portraits that they can use for social to announce the launch.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So that was them. And then Petite Keep Same. They saw my little sketch that I did of the colony,
Mhm.
and they were going there for like a work retreat very soon. And they wanted to come out with two patterns that were like inspired by their trip, their Palm Beach trip. And so I created the island hopper print for them and what was it? The Palm Beach Paradise is the other
Okay.
one. So like a girl print and a boy print. And that was so fun. They got to be on Shark Tank. Mark Cuban got to have my trunk with my print
Oh,
in it. I was like dying, screaming at the TV.
yes. And they've been on the podcast too. So people can go and listen to their episode as well.
Yes, she's awesome. She killed it in that Shark Tank episode. I'm
Yeah.
so proud of her. They're great. I saw that they're actually coming out with these little Easter baskets that are really cute. And I saw the Island Hopper print on it the other day. I'm like, oh, look at that. That's so cute.
Yeah.
Um, and so like other things like, let's see, La Pointe, I know from Southern Sea.
Uh-huh.
So that was just something that we kind of hit it off, and we designed a custom pattern for Sea Island for their pickleballs that they sell at the resort.
Okay.
So that was really fun. And other collabs that I've done, honestly, is just like reaching out and
Mm-hmm.
pitching and just seeing if it's the right time and if it's the right fit, and just putting myself out there, really, which is not easy at times. I'm trying to get better at, though.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we all, could get better in some aspects of pitching ourselves and putting ourselves out there and being an advocate for ourselves, right?
Yes, yes.
So, what would you say is your favorite part about this business? And then what's the hardest part and your least favorite?
Ooh, so I think the hardest part is what we just talked about, is just like having the confidence to put my art out there, because art is so personal. It comes from your soul,
Yep.
really. And so showing that to someone and being like, do you like it? Like, thing is really, it takes courage. And so that's a struggle. And sometimes you feel more confident on days than other days. So, and getting into the creative spirit is also hard, especially with the roles that we juggle on a daily basis. Life can get pretty busy,
Mhm.
and you can go through things where you just are not feeling it some days. And so that's the difficult part about being a creative, I would say. I think the best thing about my job, and the thing I like about the most, is I get to be creative and I get to share it with people. And I just want my artwork to like evoke like a sense of joy, maybe spark like a little memory, and just it makes me feel really good when I do share my artwork and people like it enough to share it with others
Yeah.
and like gift it. That is like the biggest compliment for me, and it's so rewarding. Um, and just like, yeah, just making artwork that's just gonna brighten your day and just make like the everyday a little bit brighter.
Uh-huh. No, that has to be so fulfilling when not only does that person like your artwork and the products, but then they like it enough to give it to someone else and think someone else would also appreciate it. It has to be such a great moment.
It is. It's a true compliment. I love that.
Totally. So I'm curious, what's a dream collab that you would love to do? And then also, like, what's your favorite collab or product or, thing that you've worked on so far, would you say?
Yeah. So I think Dream Collab actually is happening right before my eyes. So I've always wanted to get into the interior space and with wallpaper,
Mhm.
especially because we're going to be building our own home starting this year. So
Mhm.
like I'm so excited to be able to actually use my designs in my home, in the format of wallpaper. Like that's always been a dream of mine. And so Alexis and Jenna have been so cool and have just been a dream to work with, honestly. And it's been a process. Like who knew? Like it's literally been like a baby. Like I feel like 9 months in the making. So, and now it's finally here. We launched last month, and I'm so proud of that collection. It truly is like a baby.
Mhm.
And I put so much love and hard work into it. And that has been a dream come true for sure. I think doing more in the interior space and doing more like accessories for the home would be great. just honestly things that you can use on a daily basis that's just going to be like, oh, this is fun, this is pretty, this is just brightening your day, really, like I said. I think children's apparel would be really cool, and any type, like women's apparel too, men's apparel would be really cool. So maybe this year we'll see.
Oh, I would love that. I love your cane print that you did in the pink and green. It's so preppy, for the wallpaper collab, but I could totally see, like, a skirt or a dress in that I would love to wear.
Yes, that would be so cool.
Definitely. So, I'm gonna ask this question, but what does preppy mean to you?
So preppy, I think it means two things to me. I think first of all, it's a style, I would say. For someone to have a preppy style, it's like it's a mix of like fun, bright colors, patterns, like, but very traditional in a sense. Very Americana in spirit, I would say, that kind of style, timeless. And then it also means like a lifestyle. To have a preppy lifestyle would be, I think I associate a lot of things with preppy lifestyle, like very much like yacht club or country club. And that kind of plays all together, like country club chic, or, like the
Mhm.
style and the lifestyle kind of play off of each other. I think that's kind of how I define preppy.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Um, so I know you shared a great resource, being for artists of how to, I think it was called brand to brand. Is that what it was called?
Yeah,
Yeah.
brand.
Do you
Hmm.
have any other resources to share with listeners that they could check out, or books, or newsletters, or websites, programs?
Yeah. If you're just starting out, I would say YouTube for sure. Like that's kind of my go-to, like where I first started out, and then that's how I found Jenna Rainey. There's a bunch of free YouTubes out there that you can just learn the basics. There's also a book that someone gifted me when I was first learning how to do watercolor, and I forgot what the title of the book is called, but it's by Emma Block. She's a watercolor artist, and she goes over the basics. And then she also provides tutorials in the book as well. So that's really helpful. Um, let's see, that brand plus brand course changed everything. So if you're getting serious about like doing surface pattern design, I highly recommend that course. And yeah, I mean, I think that's really
Yeah,
the where I would start.
those are great resources there to check out. Now, anything else you're working on? Any sneak peeks that you can share?
Yes. So I am working with La Stitch, which is the baby. It's a co-op between Greystone Needlepoint and the Red Thread Atelier. And so they formed this co-op called La Stitch. And so they are going to be providing canvases only like for wholesale. So they'll be providing canvases for other retailers and things like that. And they reached out, and so we are developing some canvases together for needlepoint, which
Oh,
is so exciting. I have never, like, I know nothing about needlepoint. I just know that it's very popular and
yes,
people
you
are
will
so
be
into it.
hooked.
I know you are a needlepointer,
Yes.
so it looks like a lot of fun. So I might need to do it. I might need to do it on my own canvas.
Totally. So any, like, sneak peeks of what some of those designs might be or motifs?
I want to keep it true to brand. So it's
Mhm.
going to be very like things that are very Florida,
Okay.
and very on brand, like with Little Blue Designs. So very bright colors. Like you'll see a lot of coastal elements because I feel like my art is very bright and sunny and inspired by coastal living. So you'll see like shells, you'll see nautical things, you'll see all sorts of stuff. But I want to get into like the hat bands that would be super cute that you could
Yes.
use for your sun hats, eyeglasses case for your sunglasses,
Mhm.
like things that would play into the Florida lifestyle.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what you can expect from that.
I love that. I can't wait. And is there a date that people can look for this yet or around?
Soon. So we're picking through the motif library right now and just selecting which ones we're going to run with. But I would say within the next couple months,
Okay.
we can
Super
see some coming
exciting.
out. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And then let's see. I'm trying to think of what else is coming up. So I got to meet Bentley from East Wind Designs
Okay.
over at the Southern Sea,
Yeah.
and she was the one at Sip Shop that had those like really pretty acrylic trays
Yes.
and the coasters. And so we are going to be working together. And so I think she's going to be using my wallpaper on some of those trays and some of those coasters. So that'll
Cool.
be really fun. So within the next couple months, we can probably do something with that. Um, Let's see. I think there's some children's apparel brands that we will be collabing with pretty
Okay.
soon.
Okay.
And I don't want to say the names yet,
Okay.
but
That's fair.
children's apparel brand. One is really known for like Pima cotton pajamas
Okay.
and casual wear. And the other one is a brand new boutique in Alabama. So we'll see if we can make something happen there. And there's an exciting one with a well-known brand that makes play mats for a very popular type of game, but I can't
Okay.
really say anything about that.
Oh, okay. So fun. I think I might have an idea, and they might have been on the podcast.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, so all of this is so exciting. So for those um, who might want to keep up to tabs and see when you're going to be launching this, where can they follow you on social media and your website? I assume those are probably the best places to keep up to date and see what's new.
Yes, definitely. You can, Instagram is at Little Blue Designs, and my website is littlebluedesigns.us.com. And I usually have like a little collab page on there where you can see what's going on. Like right now, I think I have the Petite Keep collab on there, and the wallpaper for sure is on there. And then I'll just post as those launches come out. Same thing with social too.
Oh my gosh. Well, I cannot wait. I am so excited. And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. This was such fun.
Thank you so much for listening to the Preppy Podcast. I hope this put a little prep in your step for the day. Please subscribe, rate, and review on wherever you listen to your podcast. And follow along with @the Preppy Podcast on social media.